Hello, and to the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. My name is Rob Peeters, and joining me is my co-host, Josh Roller. I am located in the great city of Indianapolis in the state of Indiana, while Josh comes to you from Charlotte, two of the biggest racing hubs in North America. So I think that should tell you all you need to know about how great this show is. That's how great this show is. We've got knowledge coming at you straight from the source, pretty much. We had an exciting weekend of races here, and not here, but out in Talladega for NASCAR as the NASCAR playoffs continue. And then we had some good old-fashioned Indiana short track racing down in Salem. The ARCA Racing Series was down there. And hey, we crowned some Road to Indy champions as well. So there's a lot of stuff that happened over the weekend, but that's just scraping the surface because we also have a lot of news that we're going to cover as well. And in covering that news, we usually go a bit over, so I'm going to go ahead and see what happens if I end the intro right here and jump right into the news, because my name is Rob. If you missed that, I don't know how you missed that, we just went through it, but hey, my name's Rob, and I have a thing called Rob's Racing Report that starts the show every week, and I'm going to go ahead and start that right now. So starting off with Formula One news, we have some imminent news about the schedule. The schedule has finally been updated and released with its final additions and revisions. So we are indeed going to Turkey this weekend. So that's first and foremost. We are indeed going to Turkey. It's too late to cancel the race now, I think. Yeah. I think most teams have probably already got quite a bit of their stuff there by now, I would think. And that means that we had just one more race to fill out the gap, which was the canceled Australia race. So we are going to Qatar. Losail International Circuit has joined the 2021 Formula One calendar as the replacement for Australia, and it will be the first of 3 straight races in the Middle East to conclude the season. In addition, the Qatar Grand Prix will now return in 2023, and it will be the first race in a 10-year deal. The race could once again take place in Losail if 2023 upgrades occur. So this is interesting because I think I talked about it, how I wanted to see what it would be like to see Losail on the Formula One circuit, on the Formula One schedule, and now we've seen this happen. We've seen it. It is now official. We're going to Losail. It's difficult because, you're talking about 4 races in the Middle East in Formula One now. You got Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and now Qatar. And we're going to go to 3 of them to end the season. So it's okay. I guess it's one thing to kind of stay in that general area to end the season, not make everybody travel a lot, but at the same time, it kind of surprised. I don't know how to feel about 4 races in the Middle East, and I don't know if you would consider Baku and Azerbaijan part of the Middle East. I think that's more Eastern Europe than anything than the Middle East. But anyway,
it's on the border, but I consider it the more European than the Middle Eastern myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful track. It's a beautiful. It's the city down there is definitely very beautiful. It's very picturesque. But that's not to say that Abu Dhabi isn't also picturesque, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, see, the thing about me, this is my opinion, is I wanted to kind of see this, but at the same time, it kind of makes me. It makes you think. It's like, okay, well, we're going to 4 races in the Middle East now. Is this even ethical? You know what I mean? I know they have a lot of money, but at the same time, you look at the track record, the human rights issues that continue to pop up all over the place. It just kind of makes you wonder, like, are we doing the right thing? Is Formula One doing the right thing by following this money here? And then there's a lot of natural criticism. There was an article somewhere, I can't remember who published it, but like, can Formula One support 4 Middle Eastern races? Like, can they justify having that? And it's a very good question. I'm interested more to hear what kind of our listeners think. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, Josh, but yeah, 4 races in the Middle East, it seems a bit excessive considering what the Middle East is known for now, at least. It's not exactly known to be the most. It's trying to kind of whitewash its country's image to gain more tourism because they know that when the oil dries up, tourism is going to be the only thing that's going to keep them as a viable economy. And so they're naturally preparing this by trying to get as many sports on board. Obviously, the World Cup is going to be there next year, which is a whole different mess of controversy that I don't even want to get into. It's just interesting. It's very interesting. Like I said, if you take Lusail and you ignore the fact that it's in Qatar, I think it's a good track, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Is just I don't want to ignore it completely, but in order to try and be objective about how the racing might be, I have to kind of ignore the fact that it's in Qatar. But I do think that the track is interesting, and it will hopefully be a very interesting event. I don't know if it'll be at night. Do you know if it'll be at night, Josh?
I didn't see where it would be a night or day race. I would probably guess because it's in the Middle East, it would be a night race because of start time purposes.
Yeah, they have lights at the track because I know MotoGP runs their races at night. So, maybe it could be another, nice night race for everybody. I think a lot of people especially prefer those night races because in the Middle East because they're on at decent times, at least over here in the States. They're on a little bit later in Europe, but overall, I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm curious to see how the racing turns out. We're gonna go ahead here and move into IndyCar news because we've got a lot of IndyCar news to talk about. Man, the season might be over, but the news never stops. Anderson Promotions has established a new junior open wheel series named the USF Juniors, presented by Cooper Tires. The series will start in 2022 and is slated to race at 6 road courses with approximately 16 to 18 races. And that's an interesting piece of news that just came out here. We've got not necessarily a new ladder on the road to Indy, but a new racing series for drivers to cut their teeth in, and maybe it could be even a little cheaper. Who knows?
Yeah.
Racer.com reports that the 2022 Detroit Grand Prix on Belle Isle could be the last on the island. Detroit Grand Prix chairman and Penske Corporation president Bud Denker made a presentation to the Detroit City Council last Monday night that would, with approval, return auto racing to downtown Detroit. Part of the proposed move is in response from the energy created by this year's Nashville Grand Prix for the fans, and also it's not written here in the news story part here, but there's substantial pushback to racing at Belle Isle on that as a park. A lot of people find, because if you be honest, it's basically a public park, and it has to get shut down for like 4 or 5 months out of the year. During like times when people want to go to the park, like during the spring and in the early summer months, and that's when it's completely, they're hosting the race or they're setting up or tearing down from the race, stuff like that. I understand their people's point of view because it's not like it's hard to really look at that. You want to look at it from a race fan. It's just like, oh, just deal with it. But then again, if you're local to Detroit and that's a place that you enjoy going to do whatever, as a park, I can understand why that would be frustrating. Granted, I think most street races are probably pretty frustrating for the locals, but they still have them every year. So if they're looking to move it to downtown Detroit, I'll be curious. Now, I saw the proposal for this track. It definitely looks kind of interesting. Like, I'm not saying Belle Isle is any better, but man, I have to wonder why they're going with this. I think they had, at the very least, decent tracks when Formula One and kart ran on there.
They're definitely trying to keep the GM Renaissance Center at the centerpiece because, how many times in a Detroit Belle Isle race is there the GM Renaissance Center in the background, it's displayed, and then now you could say, well, let's put a camera on top of the tower and zoom it around as the cars fall through. It's just, I don't know. They should be going to Michigan. I don't know why they're still trying this Detroit crap. They should be going to Michigan, but that's just my opinion. And I know that that's easier said than done, obviously, with what NASCAR likes to prevent, with how IndyCar likes to say we're working on getting more ovals and then put out a schedule where they don't even add any big ones. They only add Iowa back, which, I guess is cool, but who really cares? Everybody was sitting here hoping for Pocono, maybe hoping for one last hurrah at Auto Club or something. I don't know. And this is what we get instead. Whatever. Anyway, here's something that is actually good news for IndyCar if you're a fan of the throwbacks like I am.
Toyota has entered the conversation as a potential manufacturer in IndyCar once the series switches to a 2.4-liter twin-turbo V6 engine format utilizing a KERS system, the kinetic energy recovery system. TRD's David Wilson did not confirm or deny its interest to Racer, which is the big note that I saw there. When they say they don't confirm or deny, it's pretty much it's a confirmation. You're not denying it. So if you're not denying it, then what are you doing?
Yes, we are interested.
Yeah, no comment
That
is also
translation,
a comment. Everybody knows
yes,
that.
TRD is interested in doing this.
Yes. Anyway, what sparked intrigue was that the French commentators for IndyCar's race at Long Beach mentioned that Toyota was in the conversation to join IndyCar. So that's crazy because I when I first heard that, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, that's just hokey. These French commentators, they don't know what's going on. They're just talking. They're just talking about some stuff, and then all of a sudden Racer goes and investigates it, and sure enough, okay, there actually might be something here, which I'm all for because I know Honda and Chevrolet have been very vocal since the beginning that ever since Lotus, putzed out with whatever crap it brought, ever since that happened, they've been like, yeah, we would really like a third manufacturer because I know that Honda and Chevrolet don't exactly like having to field engines in half the field. Yeah. They'd like there to be somebody else to kind of take that load and that weight off of their shoulders, because that's a lot of engine leases, it's a lot of engine building that they have to do for a lot of different teams. They might be making bank on it, but it's also a lot of work and a lot of R&D and a lot of money that they have to then put back in for research. I'm sure it'd be a lot better and cheaper for all parties involved, probably, to have a third manufacturer to choose from.
Well, it's healthier too. You'd have two manufacturers chasing one instead of one chasing the other, which it seems to flip flop. If not every year, every 2 years.
I love it because it harpens back to what I've always said is one of the best modern IndyCar season, in my opinion, in terms of parity, or not parity, but in terms of diversity, was the 2003 IndyCar Series, because back then you had Toyota, you had Honda, you had Chevrolet, all building engines. You had two different chassis manufacturers in Panos, the G-Force, and then you had the Dallara, and both were equally competitive. The Panos G-Force was a little bit better at some tracks. The Dallara was a little bit better at other tracks, but the Dallara hadn't become the dominant chassis by that point, like it would eventually become by 2005. And that was mainly because once Don Panos bought it, he kind of focused more on this new Champ Cars thing and the DP01. And so, anyway, that's a totally different story. But my point is, it harpens back to that time, especially when you're looking at a very large period of growth for IndyCar, a lot of new teams, a lot of new drivers that are coming in. This is really good to see a healthy part of the series. I'm excited to see if more comes out about this Toyota partnership, because I'd love to see Toyota back in IndyCar racing. It's been a long time, though. It's been a very long time. It's been since 2005 that Toyota was in IndyCar. So we're looking at a little over 15 years that they've been involved with IndyCar, and it would be great to see them come back. I know I for one, am welcoming it. And then the final part of the IndyCar news section that I want to talk about is Roman Grosjean and Jimmy Johnson will both take their IndyCar Oval rookie tests on Wednesday. So how about that? So this whole, Jimmy Johnson still hasn't been confirmed for the 500. Tony Kanaan still has another year left on his contract to run the ovals for Chip Ganassi Racing. But Johnson's going to go out there and do his oval test, which is going to be very I'm very interested to see that. So, and apparently it's free. I know this is completely irrelevant. By the time this podcast goes up, the test will already have happened or be happening. But I do believe it's free to the public. I don't know if it'll be live streamed. It might be. But it'll be very interesting. It'll be our first time to see Jimmy Johnson behind the wheel of an IndyCar on an oval.
Yeah. Well,
it'll be our first time seeing Roman Grosjean on the oval at Indianapolis, which will be even cooler, I think.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Johnson obviously going the right way at Indianapolis. I love seeing that.
That is very true.
We're talking about Jimmy Johnson as a 3-time Brickyard champion.
4-time.
4-time. That's right. I'm sorry. 4-time. I forgot about I sometimes forget about how much Johnson has won. But anyway, yeah, you're right. He's a 4-time Brickyard champion, and it'd be pretty interesting if he would become the first Brickyard champion to win the Indy 500.
Well, and it's never happened the other way around either.
No, it has not. It
never
has
had
not.
an Indy guy do it in the 400. So that would be.
I don't. Yeah, that's. I feel like the closest that
Is
Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart came close in '97.
Yeah.
And then he came pretty close again in 2001, but it just couldn't ever get it done. And I think Stewart's time at the 500 is about done. But Johnson could be starting this whole new thing. I'd love to see. I am so excited to see how Jimmy Johnson's going to do on an oval, because I think that's his bread and butter. That's always been his bread and butter. He's an oval driver first and foremost. I understand he's trying something new, but he can also try. I mean, I just look at how Kurt Busch did and how that transition happened for Kurt Busch. Mm-hmm. Kurt did great on the old. Now, I think if Kurt had run the Grand Prix prior, I think he would have struggled like hell. But I think being on the oval, it helped him. And, having knowledge, having run the Brickyard before, having gotten that test session, Jimmy getting this test and having that knowledge of having run the Brickyard, obviously, he's got to get the braking points a bit different, but it's not really braking because you're going more or less full out throttle at Indianapolis. He's just got to find the right setup in the car and figure out how to go fast. Got to figure out the IndyCar draft, which is a little bit different than the Cup Series draft, obviously. Maybe not so much given that he ran last year and in 2019 with those big-ass spoilers that created the big runs. So maybe it'll be a little bit maybe it'll be just more at home for Jimmy, I think, running an oval. Anyway, moving on here to some pieces of news about the Miami International Autodrome, which I still think is the dumbest name in the world. Organizers for F1's Miami Grand Prix at Hard Rock Stadium are apparently open to the possibility of adding IndyCar and NASCAR to its schedule of events, but only within a specific window of time. The window is approximately late March through early May. So I would believe that this will inevitably become an IndyCar race once F1 gets tired of it, because let's be honest, it's going to happen. It happens to every street race that comes to America, and it's not. This Miami Grand Prix is no different. The only thing I would worry about...
I think this one's a little different. I don't think F1's going to be doing anything that they don't believe can have the potential to last. I disagree with you on that one, but I do. But I think it'd be interesting to see... This is how Long Beach goes to the September. An IndyCar race at Miami in early April takes the place of Long Beach, and Long Beach goes to September.
Okay, fine. I don't like it, but
I know you don't. There's a lot of things I suggest about schedule realignments you don't like,
look, I'm a big proponent of just leaving things as like you can mix stuff up. You can mix stuff up here every now and again, but I feel like the thing that made NASCAR and to an extent IndyCar as big as they were back in the day was the schedule uniformity, where it didn't change much. You could schedule, something yearly. You could schedule a yearly trek out to the track at the same time every year. You think about, Daytona was always day before President's Day, and it always was until they decided to change it. And then, you think the Brickyard was always in the first week of August, and it was always followed by Watkins Glen. I'm thinking about that. Yeah, the Southern 500 was always on Labor Day. Richmond race was always like in first week of September or something. That's the second week of September. Excuse me, like the week after Labor Day. That's the kind of stuff that I remember that I planned my racing life around. And it's all kind of gone out the window now, where it's kind of like, it used to be like I could tell what race was coming up next based on what time of the year it was or what part of the calendar it was, and now it's kind of like I find myself thinking, where are we going next week? Oh, we're going here? Oh, okay. Whereas, years ago I wouldn't have had even had to think twice about it. I would have just known, oh, hey, it's this time of the year, it's probably time for X race. You know what I mean?
I do.
That's where I'm coming from, and I think that's something that helps keep fans in the long run, gives them something to come back to, whereas if you're constantly changing the dates, they don't really, what might work for some people might not work for other people, and these people that were kind of counting on people had a good time at this new race, and then it moves to like a month later, and then they're like, oh, I can't go now because it doesn't align schedule. That old date did, and maybe more people would have made time for that old date if it become a thing. And I think another thing that you see a lot of those tracks that have the same date. You look at Darlington. Once Darlington gets its May race and its Labor Day race back, people are like, oh, hey, I know exactly when Darlington's coming, and people make a trek out for it. You see Darlington have, pretty really good crowds, and I don't know if it's because of the quality of racing, but I personally believe it's because people know when the race is. They just know, hey, it's Labor Day, okay, Darlington's coming up, you know what I mean?
Well, I know, and not to, this isn't about the news, but I was just going to say that the fan today is different from the fan 30 years ago, and I think in two ways. One, change is good. You want to mix things up. You don't want things to get mundane. And two, I don't know how many people, unless it's a big deal, like it's a big vacation, I don't think there's a lot of people planning a vacation a year in advance anymore. I think more things are spontaneous or like, oh wow, I'm interested in that. I'm going to wait till the schedule comes out and I'll see when it's going to happen or what that. I just don't think there's a whole lot of vacations being planned a year in advance or planned years in advance. Like, okay, well, we know let's go to Watkins Glen for the next 3 years. I don't think that's the case anymore. It's just the way society, I think, has evolved in my eyes, anyways. In my opinion, that's not scientific or fact. It's just my opinion.
No, you're okay. I just think this will be interesting because I know you think I know it's not that you think, but it's probably what you're saying is more true. You're probably right that F1 wants to make this a permanent home, but at the same time, I feel like they're always going to be trying to go for the next big thing. For a long time it was Indianapolis, and now it's COTA. And then now that COTA's kind of fallen by the wayside, it's not as popular anymore. Now they're like, oh, we want to go to Miami because it's in a better part. It's in a more, populated part. Well, how much longer until they are like, oh, hey, we just figured out we can go race in New York. And then they move the race to New York, and now the track organizers are like, oh, wait, what? Because that's what's happened. We've seen that happen every time F1 tries to race here. They don't ever get it right by staying in one place. I think if it's up to me, they should only be racing in Austin and maybe Indianapolis, and that's it. But if they want to try this Miami thing, that's all good and fine. But don't lie in our faces and act like this thing's going to last 30 years because we all know it's got a limited lifespan.
It's got a lifespan as long as Hard Rock Stadium has a lifespan. That's the thing.
Well, and they just spent millions of dollars to upgrade it not long ago. So, it did just host the Super Bowl. So,
well, the thing that has, and the last thing I'll say here before you move on is that the good thing that they have in their favor is that it's hard to build a stadium in a city like Miami, and I'll leave it at that. I'll let our listeners here in domestically and internationally figure out what I'm hinting at.
Well, yeah, it's hard to disagree with you on that one. Let's go to the NASCAR news because we got some good news for some good guys. GMS Racing announced that Grant Enfinger will be the driver of the number 23 Chevrolet Silverado for the 2022 and 2023 NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. The team confirmed there will be at least 2 truck teams, but beyond that is unknown. They do not expect Tyler Ankrum to return, but the possibility of Chase Purdy and Zane Smith returning have a chance. Not surprised. I think Ankrum's performance has really fallen off the past several months, if not, last season and a half. I don't
has not been a tour at GMS he's wanted.
No, I don't. I think it's probably best for both of those guys, both him and GMS, to go in a different direction after that. But it's great for Grant Enfinger because he deserved a chance to run for the championship this year, and he got robbed that because he couldn't find a full-time ride and obviously no waiver. So, it's good to see him back in the Truck Series full-time. I don't think he needs to do anything other than stay in the Truck Series. That's his bread and butter. That's where he's good at. It's just good to see him get a full-time ride that I think is well-deserved. And this was interesting news about the Truck Series here. Austin Hill confirmed before the beginning of the truck race at Talladega that he will not be returning to Hattori Racing Enterprises in 2022 and hinted that he will be in the Xfinity Series next season. Vince Welch also hinted in the race broadcast that Hattori could expand to 2 teams. So all this stuff came from Fox directly. So this was not reported on by anybody. Motorsport.com didn't have this. NASCAR.com didn't have this. NBC didn't have this. Only Fox had this, which was quite surprising. I don't think it came from Bob Pockrass either. I think Jamie Little was the first one who broke it.
Yeah.
And then Vince Welch obviously added that. So it's kind of interesting to see. Not saying Jamie Little isn't a journalist, but I see her more as a presenter than a journalist, someone who's breaking news. So that's why it's kind of oh, okay. I expected it to come from really Pockrass or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's what really makes her a really good pit reporter, though.
Well, yeah, she's got the scoop. She had the scoop that Pockrass didn't, which, of course, I've overheard Pockrass before say, they don't let him down in the garage area, or they don't let him on pit road anymore. So, whatever.
I saw him on Bristol pit road.
No, I mean, not as much as the other reporter. Not like he doesn't have the same access as the pit reporters do, is what he was saying.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah, they have more access than him, apparently, which doesn't surprise me because
is that because of COVID or is that in general?
Could be because of COVID. Could be in general. I don't know. I'm just relaying a conversation I overheard at IMS from Bob Pockrass.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Breaking news from.
Well, Bob Pockrass probably doesn't like me relaying something I eavesdropped on, but I don't know. It was just an interesting comment that he made. But
yeah.
Whatever. But that's interesting. So, Austin Hill, not going to be back in the Truck Series. He's probably going to be in the Xfinity Series. Hattori Racing is going to be looking for a driver and maybe even 2 next year. Yeah. The 2022, I missed one. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. confirmed that he would return to JTG Daugherty Racing in 2022 in what will be a single car operation. Ryan Preece is now racing for a ride. He doesn't have a ride next year. Yeah, I think it's a little bit too late for him to find a ride. Most of the rides I think are pretty much lined up.
We knew he was going to be out of a ride for a while. They announced a few months ago that they were going to be going down to 1. It was just basically
when you're running unchartered, you're losing money.
Yeah,
that's the issue. When you're running without a charter, you're just straight up losing money.
Yeah. Especially if you don't have a fully funded car or a very well funded car.
Oh, they have a fully funded car. It's just
but it's not as well. They can't charge Chase Elliott money to do that. They got to charge whatever fraction that is. Yeah, they can't. I think I saw one time where Hendrick was charging $600,000 per race for Chase. Well, there aren't too many guys who are pulling $600,000 per race.
Man, Napa's dumping money into Chase, man. They don't even put him in advertisements anymore.
That's the thing, yeah. That's what's sad, is that he's not in a whole lot of advertisements.
It was funny when they did the Chase Elliott action figure. That's a blow-up doll. Blow-up doll action figure.
That was great, and they had great marketing in Nationwide Series, but when he got the cup, it just fell off.
It just stopped doing it. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, now I can get to this part. The 2022 NASCAR Xfinity and Camping World Truck Series calendars have been released. Oh, I've been waiting to talk about this. The Xfinity Series will go to Portland International Raceway for the first time in series history. The first time NASCAR has returned to Portland since the Truck Series ran there, and I believe 2000, 2001 maybe? 2000 was the last one? Okay. I knew they ran there in 99 and 2000, but I wasn't sure if they returned in 01 or not. But yeah, so it's the first time in what is essentially now 22 years that NASCAR has returned to Portland. It's huge for Portland because keep in mind, they didn't have an IndyCar race between 2007 and 2018. So, Portland, Pacific Northwest fans, you're getting an IndyCar race and a NASCAR race next year, and the best NASCAR series too. You're getting the best NASCAR series. You're not getting the Cup Series of Trucks. You're getting the best NASCAR series.
Yeah.
Hands down. So how about this? So they talked about Gateway is not going to return to go to Xfinity, so they're keeping that a truck race only. And a truck race and a Cup race now, so it's just gonna be a Cup of Truck at Gateway. And then the Xfinity Series is not going to Mid Ohio anymore. The trucks are now, but The trucks are also not going back to Watkins Glen. They are going to Sonoma for the first time since, I believe, the Truck Series started.
1998, I think.
It's been a long time since the Truck Series was at Sonoma, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. I'm sad that Watkins Glen race was only a one and done. I'm really bummed about that. But, seeing them go back to Sonoma is kind of cool because I feel like that was a good, cool. I think it's cool that they're going to Sonoma, but I love that truck race at Watkins Glen, man. I really loved it. I really thought it was a good, fun race to watch, and we don't get to see it ever again. But hey, that's okay, because the best part of the best news, I'm saving the best news for last, is Lucas Oil Raceway, IRP, is returning to the Truck Series schedule for the first time since 2011. And I am so excited because this has been a long time coming. The Truck Series has desperately needed to follow along with the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series and the ARCA Series. In fact, the ARCA Series is coming back too. The Lucas Oil Raceway announced that the Truck and the ARCA Series are coming back. So the ARCA Series wasn't at Lucas Oil Raceway last year, and now they're coming back, and now the Truck Series is coming back. So in Indianapolis, I'm going to tell you something. In Indianapolis, next year, you're going to have an ARCA race, a truck race, an Xfinity race, a Cup race, and the BC39, all within a span of about 5 days.
Oh, and don't forget an IndyCar race.
Oh, that's right. We forgot an IndyCar race, too. I forgot that's happening. So basically, if you're in Indianapolis next year, you are... I'm excited, obviously, because I am in Indianapolis. But it is... You guys are lucking out. We are lucking out with that. I'm so happy the Truck Series has finally returned. I was looking up, and I was like, I still have my ticket from what I thought was the last time I was ever going to see the Truck Series. Unless I got some dream job and got to travel and see them all. But no, I'm hopefully, maybe, we'll see, going to be able to see him again next year, and I'm so excited for that. This is huge. That's huge for Lucas Oil Raceway. I know they wanted NASCAR back.
Yeah.
I think it was all a matter of IMS, and I don't know how it happened. I don't want to speculate, but it looks like NASCAR finally threw him a bone and said, hey, you want the Truck Series back and the ARCA Series back? And they took it with open arms because I don't know. If you saw that SRX race over the summer, man, well, I remember jam-packed. That place was packed. They missed stock car racing at that joint.
Well, I remember in the fall of 2018, there was an article, I forget, it might have been done by the Indy Star, that talked about how the oval at Lucas Oil Raceway wanted to get stock cars back, big-time stock cars, and they were going to be throwing money into the track beginning, actually, I think it was around 2020. Well, we obviously know what happened last year with COVID. That threw a lot of, plans into, I don't say jeopardy, but, it questioned you had to realign your funds and financial situation. So I don't know what upgrades they've done, if any, to the track, or they will do any upgrades.
The track did not look any different when I was there for SRX.
Will they be doing any upgrades next spring before the race? I doubt it, but it's cool to see the trucks go back. I'm really happy for that. ARCA should never have left. There's no reason why they can't go to Salem, Winchester, and IRP all in the same year for the ARCA series.
They should be doing that. ARCA. Yeah. If you're saying ARCA is Midwest, you can't get any more Midwest than Indiana. What state has more racetracks per capita than every other state in the world? Indiana.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed that Canadian Tire Motorsports Park wasn't on there, but I don't know if you saw the video from Ben Kennedy that Bob Pockers posted that kind of explained it. I get why. And I understand the reasons. They didn't want to schedule Canadian Tire Motorsports Park just to have it get canceled again. They want teams to prepare and plan ahead of time and not have a schedule change 3 months beforehand like it was this year. Obviously with Canada being pretty strict on their COVID stuff. So hopefully we at least
Given what Kennedy said, I was surprised that IndyCar went ahead and was like, yeah, we're going to go to Toronto, and Formula E has gone ahead and said, yeah, we're going to go to Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe NASCAR's just trying to play it more conservative on there. And maybe in 23 they go back. And maybe this. God,
I forgot about that. I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we were just talking about the Pacific Northwest getting an IndyCar race and a Cup race, and an Xfinity race. If you're willing to cross the border, if you can cross the border and go up to Vancouver, you can also see a Formula E race.
Yeah.
Dude, Pacific Northwest race fans are finally not getting the long end of the stick for like the first time in decades.
Now we just got to get the Rocky Mountains back, and I'll talk about how to do that later in the show.
Okay, so that's it for the news. Let's talk about our featured paint scheme for the week, because this is our next segment of the show. We're going to be talking about the 2018 Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, the second season under Monster Energy sponsorship in the Cup Series, the first season with the Chevrolet Camaro body style, first season with the new Toyota body style, the last season, or second to last season, it was the last season with the Ford Fusion.
Yep.
But there was some pretty decent paint schemes here. So Josh, you've got one for us, and I think I'm going to go ahead and let you tell us all about it.
Yeah, I'm picking a paint scheme that if we had had this podcast and it existed in 2018, would have been one of my top 3 picks for favorite NASCAR throwback that year. I'm featuring Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s number 17 John Deere throwback Ford. It was a throwback to Chad Little's number 97 John Deere Ford that he drove for Roush Fenway, or just Roush Racing, I guess, back then, in the late 90s and 2000. Kurt Busch drove it a little bit too after Little was released. I mean, to me, it's pinnacle late 90s, but I mean, it's one of those paint schemes you could easily say that. Tell me a paint scheme for the 1990s. Just John Deere paint scheme is one of them. He also drove it in, forget the team, but he drove it the number 23 Pontiac. The paint scheme was very similar to this one, and he might have driven it for another team and another number. I feel like I'm making that up in my head, but I know he drove the 23 and the 97. The 97 and the Ford just looked better, and it's also just more popular too. The thing that really was cool is that they went out and got the sponsor. That's what makes it, is when you can get the actual sponsor on there, and that was so cool. That was very cool. He started 25th, finished 12th, so had a pretty decent day in the Southern 500. And to top it off, kind of icing on the cake, I was at that race the following weekend at Indianapolis. John Deere returned, only with a modern scheme, which was pretty solid. It was more yellow than green. But still a pretty solid paint scheme. But so yeah, this one's just one of my favorites. I remember when they released it, and I was like, okay, instant favorite. I don't care. There's not going to be few cars in this weekend who can top it. And I think the only one that clearly beats it, the only one that clearly beat it from that year was Kyle Busch's Skittles car, throwback car, in my opinion, anyway. So Rob, what was yours?
Yeah, I'm so glad I finally get to talk about this one, because I really like talking about this in any given time. I'll always talk about this person, this driver, whatever. But finally I get to talk about the last NASCAR Cup Series start for Danica Patrick, which came in this, which unfortunately had to come in a premium motorsports crapmobile. Good old Jay Robinson having a bunch of charters that he didn't need back then. Anyway, this car was, so here's the thing. So Danica basically got pushed out after the end of 2017 because she lost all her sponsorship, basically. Nature's Bakery was a complete failure. They didn't know what they gotten into. And then you had TaxAct, Mobile One, and Aspen Dental basically having to come on and fill what should have been, Nature's Bakery. I don't know if Stuart Haas gave him a discount for that or what. Basically, just funding fell completely through. And it was so surprising because back then it was like, I was surprised. I was like, you telling me Danica can't find any other sponsors? Like, she went and she got this Nature's Bakery deal, but no one else wants sponsor. Like, it's literally free. You're printing money. You're literally printing money by having Danica as your spokesperson. Anybody with a brain who wants to get into racing could probably go ahead and sponsor, but it didn't work out. But she did manage at the end of the year to put together this deal to run Daytona and Indianapolis, basically as a final send-off for her career. I don't know why she chose that point to just retire. I felt like she was pushed out before she was ready. That's just my opinion. Again, granted, she hadn't really done much in NASCAR since she got to Cup. So that probably was a bummer. But then again, I've also, based on what I've seen, what I've read, what I've heard, she also should never have gotten rid. Stuart Haas never should have let her get rid of Tony Gibson, because Tony Gibson was basically the person that was giving her the best cars and she was having the best runs with. She had this great top 10 run. I think it was at Atlanta in 14. That she looked really fast that day, and it was Tony Gibson was up on that spotter. And as soon as Knost came along, all I remember was listening on the scanner to Knost, and man, he was awful. He was awful to her. Like he was belittling her, berating her constantly, and that just made her worse. Because then it just made her mad. It was a bad deal, so she got another crew chief for the next year, and then another crew chief for the next year. The fact of the matter is, she just never did Tony Gibson. Because I think Tony Gibson was on her pit box when she was with, Tony Uri was, but when she was with Junior Motorsports. But when she moved over to Stuart Haas, they got Tony Gibson, and Tony Gibson was really good for her. But she didn't feel like that, and I think that kind of sabotaged her whole career. But despite that fact, she came back for a final run. And she got GoDaddy to return, and it was Premium Motorsports, like I said, crapmobile, but it was number 7, so she at least got to go out in the car number that she had run for most of her career. And I love this car because it's so simple. I don't care that it's simple, but it you know what it is, and that's the thing. Sometimes simplicity works better than something a little bit more complicated. I mean, you talked about your featured paint scheme. Obviously that's a lot more complicated. There's a lot much more going on that paint scheme that it makes it good. But I think I look at some of the other paint schemes, especially that 2015 one that Danica ran. It didn't look very good. It was a mess of colors and shapes and all this stuff. But then you get this one, and it's so much more clean. It's more, I prefer her IndyCar. I prefer the IndyCar that she ran out. I think that was the better looking car, but I still love this one because, like I said, you have the GoDaddy green. You knew exactly which one it was. It stood out amongst the entire field at Daytona. You knew exactly where she was the whole time in the pack. It's just a shame this car got torn up in a big one that, again, was not her fault, but hey, that's pretty much how her career ended, how it pretty much went. Always involved in some kind of accident, whether it be her fault or not. Usually, I would argue that about 85% of the time, it wasn't even her fault that she was in an accident. She was just always in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
There was a lot of races where I think Danica should have had at least a top 10, top 15 run, and then someone would crash right in front of her, and she just couldn't go anywhere. I think about the wreck that she had with Almirola, where Almirola got injured. Yeah, I think about that, and I'm like, man, she was running really well there, actually. And then she got turned and wrecked, and I'm like, dude, she couldn't ever catch a break in NASCAR, is a long story short. And unfortunately, her NASCAR career ended with her also not catching a break. But I still love looking at this car. I still love talking about this car. I don't know why I don't have the diecast. I should really get the diecast of this car. This is something I need to invest in, is the diecast of this car, because I love it. But anyway, that's my featured paint scheme. So I think it's time to move on now, and let's talk about some of the races that we had this weekend. We were at Talladega. We're going to talk about all 3 NASCAR races at Talladega. We're going to start with the Truck Series race. This was a complete disaster of epic proportions in terms of driving quality. I think there was a period of time where I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, who should I give the outstanding performance to? And I was thinking, John Hunter Nemechek had a pretty good run. And then I remembered, oh, that's right. No, in the first stage, he was driving like a complete idiot the whole time, pushing and shoving and trying to get up front. And I'm like, dude, you have like a points buffer that other drivers would kill for, and you're trying to blow that by racing so aggressively in stage 1. Like, you don't need stage points to like lock yourself into the next round. You don't need this. You're pretty much as long as you finish the next 3 races or next 2 or 3 races, he's going to Phoenix no matter what. That's just how it is. He did not need to be racing as aggressive as he was, and that bothered me. But that was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of driving standards. It seemed like everybody out there in the trucks was pushing and shoving, and the problem is they don't exactly know how to do it yet because they're in the trucks. John Hunter, I guess, is the exception because he's been through the Xfinity Series, he's been through the Cup Series. I would argue that he's probably a little bit more experienced in that regard. But the Truck Series, they only run 2 plate races a year, and they're at the beginning and the tail end of the season. So for the most part, these guys are not practicing how to draft, how to bump draft, how to work their way through. And it really showed. It really showed the complete lack of experience for a lot of these drivers. And it was disappointing because it ended up with a lot of torn up race trucks. There was, you had blocking, ridiculous. Enfinger, that block you have here, this Enfinger's block on Sheldon Creed triggers the second big one. The first big one was a different story, but that Enfinger block, I just talked about how great it was that Enfinger got that new ride with GMS, but I gotta say that move that he put on Creed was just stupid. I mean, not only did he take himself out, he took out Creed, he took out basically half the rest of the field. Yeah, and it didn't gain him anything. He would have been better off just staying in line.
Yeah, I thought when I saw Creed pop out, I'm like, this is a wreck's about to happen because I knew it was happening. The guy, I'm pretty sure I thought it was Enfinger. Enfinger's going to go up there and block, and he just forced him, like rode him up to the wall, and then like Creed. But at the same time, Creed didn't cut him a break either. I mean, he didn't have anyone following him, so he wasn't having a run. He wasn't getting pushed in the rear, but he could have cut him a break. Again, there was like 18 laps to go in this race. So the block on it by Enfinger was completely unnecessary. And Creed was just I don't know. It just I get this point where, like, I'm not going to lift. I'm going to wreck you. I'm going to turn you. But at the same time, you got 18 laps to go. If you can't recover from them, which he proved he could recover, he drove back up a couple times. I don't know. It goes back to some of this blocking and hitting. You know, there's a lot of experienced guys out there, and I would consider Enfinger an experienced guy. Crafton, Nemechek, these guys Friesen even, he's been in a number of these races. Sauter, these guys have experience.
Sauter should have been way better than what he's been doing.
But at the same time, there's other guys out there who just don't have the experience on the super speedways, or don't have experience super speedways in good cars or trucks and up front. And then there's this great mix of lack of respect. You know, it goes back to a lot of the races and short track races we've seen this year, or it's just a lack of respect by some of these younger drivers out there. Maybe they think they're invincible. Maybe whatever the case may be. Maybe they think I deserve that spot more than you because at this moment in time on this lap on this corner I'm faster than you. And it's I don't know. I was frustrated a little bit throughout the race too. I'm like, because it looked like a cup race almost, where there was 20 wrecks a lap that didn't materialize, but
there was a lot of torn up race cars, which, unlike the cup race, is going to put a. That's the thing. Everybody, I think, what was it? Tony Stewart said it best: is once you unload at Talladega, you might as well just already say you're out $30,000.
Yeah, what he said.
That's pretty much what happens.
Yeah, Kurt Busch shared that on the truck broadcast. He goes like, I was talking to Tony one time on the grid, and he goes, well, I just rode off 4 cars. I was like, Tony, we haven't even raced yet. I'm going to ride them off anyways.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that's the mentality you got to have. That's kind of the pro and con of this type of racing. If you want to go out there and just let them run and not be pack racing, you won't have to ride off as many cars as a whole in a field at the end of the day. But you want to run them together, you want to slow speeds down. I mean, if I'm Rick Hendrick, if I'm Joe Gibbs, I'm going to ride off. For me, I'm going to ride off 16 cars a year.
Yeah,
just automatically before we even flip the calendar to February. All right, going to write off 4 cars here. Yep. And I'm gonna go ahead and put in a request now to have another car for each team the Monday after these races because I know I'm going to need them. If I don't, great, but I'm going to write them off anyways. And but let's talk about the end here because I have my thoughts on this one. Okay, you have the end of the race. John, first off, I think Tate Fogleman used up Nemechek a little bit, but also he proved a point. But he proved a point I'm not going to go below the yellow line. I'm going to wreck this guy. This is the rules that NASCAR said. I can't go below the yellow line here. I'm going to use him up.
Okay. We're saying the yellow line was this. No, okay. So a lot of people said based on the replay evidence, it seems John Hunter just came down and
John Hunter did not come down on him. No.
Fogleman turned dead right into Hunter Nemechek because he knew it was his only way he was going to win the race.
Yeah.
People can argue that for however long they want, but I'm going to go to bed and believe exactly what I believe, and that is that he straight up ran into him. He ran into him and spun him because he wanted to win that race more than anything else. Now, look, I'll be honest with you and say John Hunter got a good finish out of it, and that's what's important. Is John Hunter supposed to get was just needed to survive the race. He survived until the last 300 feet.
He got fourth. He's going backwards, but he got fourth. And then the other thing I wanted to say here was I don't know, Rob. We're not in TV.
Yeah,
we didn't go to the TV school, but I feel like I understand the Boise State Nevada game. There's going to be more eyes on it. I understand you're going to make more per second of commercial in that game than you would for truck. I get that, okay? But here's what I would have done. Suggestion. By the off chance someone at FS1 or NBC listens to this. Folks, we got to go to the game. We're ending the broadcast here right now, but stay tuned. When Tate Fogleman is out of the care center, we're going to insert his interview into the live football broadcast so you, the NASCAR fan, can see it. We'll take 2 minutes or whatever it is and insert in this. What was the word I was using earlier, and I can't remember it now. But we'll superimpose it into the game screen there, and so you can see it. Stick around. We'll have it momentarily. No, that didn't happen at all. We just went straight to the game. We didn't even get second place. It was Tyler Hill who finished second, right? That had to be his best career finish, too. Didn't talk to him at all. It's just so I just felt like this was ESPN level mismanagement.
Okay, I have a bigger problem. I'll state what my bigger problem is with it.
Okay,
is the fact that game had started airing on FS2. Now, I understand that Fox, for some reason, likes to acknowledge without acknowledging the existence of FS2. It's very weird to me. It's like they never mention it on the broadcast unless they absolutely have to. They never use it for broadcasting any kind of live event unless it's footy, which really bothers me.
It's only in 50% of the homes that FS1 is available in.
This is true. This is accurate. But most people nowadays are probably streaming. And let me tell you something. Every major streaming service has FS1 on its base, FS2 on its base package. Sling. No, actually, I think Sling might have moved theirs to the sports package. But the point is, Fubo, YouTube TV, Hulu, all of them have FS2 on their main base package. So what I want to know is if you're airing this game on FS2 and you have an outlet for it, there's nothing live being aired on FS2. You are not interrupting any programming by preempting whatever. Nobody is watching reruns of FS2 at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. I'm sorry that nobody's doing it. Everybody's watching college football. Everybody's watching something else. If you say, hey, this game is airing on FS2, then you owe it to everybody watching that NASCAR race to continue the broadcast until you have interviewed the winner. Because you have this outlet that you're airing this other game on. It's not like this is the only. It's not like it's not like they had to cut in because the game had to air on FS1. Like, it wasn't like that. The game, nothing would have changed had they just waited, another 5-10 minutes to get Tate Fogleman out of the care center, ask him 2 quick rapid fire questions, and then go switch back to the game.
Well, my guess is why they want to get it to FS1 is that they probably hadn't gone to commercial break in that game yet, because I think he broke in with 13 minutes or something left in the fourth quarter. My guess would be...
it just started. It was in the first quarter.
Yeah, that's what I meant. First quarter, my bad. First quarter. I was counting backwards there. You had 4 quarters to go. So they went in with 13 minutes left in the first quarter. With my limited knowledge of TV, I'm going to speculate that if they have to go to commercial break, they have to go, crap, we have to go, we can't stay live, we have to go to commercial break, and they have to air that commercials on FS2, Fox Sports has to cut those commercial buyers a check. They say, you paid us $100,000 for that 30-second slot, here's $75,000 of that back, because we aired it on FS2 and not FS1 as promised, as contracted, as purchased, and less viewers. That's my guess. Now, the other thing I have, I'm not going to pick on any one streaming service on this, as far or whether that be a cable provider or a sports network such as Fox Sports or NBC or ESPN. But currently, as it stands, in my opinion, there's improvements that need to be made on some of those streaming services. So I don't know how many people were watching it on streaming. The football game. I know we're talking about, this is a racing podcast. We're concentrating on a football game, but it played a pivotal role in the end of this race. I know I don't stream games or anything if I can watch it live on television, and there are certain apps out there that say easy to use, and it's not. And I think that's because they can take advantage of it, and they can be crappy with it at this moment in time, where sooner or later they're going to be forced to have to address how bad some of these things are. I don't know. I thought I'll take that back. Paramount did a really good job, because I watched a couple SRX races on Paramount. Paramount Plus, if you guys have it. CBS's connection. So I don't know. This me trying to play. I think it's just completely mishandled. I think they could have done it better. If it was on FS2, shoot on FS2, but money talks. Okay, Fox Sports probably didn't want to hand over money back. I kind of believe that to be the case, even though again it's complete speculation. But again, all they had to do was tell Vince Welch, hey, tell fans to stick around. They're going to superimpose the interview from with Tate Fogleman live during the football game when he becomes available. That's all they had to tell Vince Welch to say, and then that's all they had to do. Minute and a half, 2 minutes tops. Heck, they could have done it during a TV timeout for football, because we all know college football and football in general loves to take TV timeouts. That's all they had to do. That's all they do. All right, band, play another song here for a few minutes. Keep playing that fight song. I'm done about this one. But the truck race, all right, Tate Fogleman, don't care how you won. Congratulations. Young Motorsports, you got to win. Congratulations. Let's move on to the Xfinity race.
Okay, we can move on to the Xfinity race, no problem, because this one was a little bit better. This one was actually really good.
Very good race.
It was, like you said here, you said organized chaos, but something that was very interesting, this blew my mind, is Justin Haley was sent to the rear of the field, or no, he was sent to the rear of the field, and then he had to do a pass-through penalty because of improperly placed decals.
Wait, that was the reason? I totally forgot about that.
Assembled or placed or assembled or whatever decals. Something never to do with the decals and not having done it properly.
What was that's a penalty?
That was a penalty. They sent him to the rear of the field and made him come down and serve pass-through penalty on the first lap. Yeah. That
I feel like that's a page of the rule book we could get rid of.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it depends. It depends, because this way they didn't really elaborate on the penalty.
No, they never do.
Was wondering if maybe the way that the decals were assembled, it gave him some kind of weird, or maybe NASCAR deemed that it would have given him an aerodynamic advantage, perhaps.
That's possible. How? Unless
I don't know how it's possible, but that's the only thing that's the only explanation I can rationalize in my brain.
But I can't. I mean, I respect that you're rationalizing that, but I can't rationalize that myself, because unless you're covering an aero duct, or I don't know. I feel like that's a really easy thing. Like, okay, get your hair dryer out here, peel that decal off, and move it two centimeters to the left, and we're gonna call it a day. Nice try, good try, but no, that's sad.
It's crazy. It's and now I got to be honest with you. Because, let's be honest, it kind of helped Haley a little bit.
It did kind of help.
Because he kind of was able to stay out of most of the wrecks by, not really being on the lead lap most of the time, most of the first stage.
It certainly kept him out of trouble. I did give him props for trying to stay on the lead lap like he did, and he played that very well. Those slow cars helped him right at the right time. Like, all right, I've got Brandon Jones right where I want him, and Brandon Jones didn't even try to swing around him. Brandon Jones, I will say, he cut him a break at the same point on that one. We talked about Sheldon Creed not cutting Grant Enfinger a break. Brandon Jones cut him a break because he could have swung right hard on that one and potentially triggered a big wreck or wrecked himself. It just alone, and he didn't. So props to Brandon Jones on that. But I wrote Organized Chaos on here because this reminded me of races from decades ago. We're like, all right, we're riding around, but cars moving around, switching lanes, because there's a lot of cars switching lanes from basically the word go. They really didn't play nice. But I felt like at the same time, unlike the truck race, they didn't need to bump and bang their way around. They got the runs, the energy. It wasn't even runs. It was a whole lane's energy was moving. And when I don't like where this one's going. I'm going to go down here because I'm seeing what's happening. I'm going to go down the inside lane. I'm going to go high side. And we didn't see more than a couple laps worth at a single point in time. Single file racing because guys working a tent because they're like, oh, I can get this energy built up. I was shocked. At one point, early in stage 3, because lap 50 was the end of stage 2. Yeah, like around lap 60, there's 5 cars on the inside line beating a train of like 15 plus 20 cars on the outside. I mean, that's old school. That's awesome. Organized chaos. That's what racing needs to be at Talladega. It doesn't need to be the truck series, which that's I don't even know what to call it. It's not organized. It's unorganized mayhem. That's what it is. I mean, that might be a double entendre, but it's unorganized mayhem. In the Cup Series, they just get too big of runs that you can't back out. The Xfinity Series, once again, that's the package. That right there. Whatever they're doing, do it. That's what it needs to be. I don't know. Look, the Cup race, I was really bummed because I got off at 3 o'clock on Sunday. I was like, all right, DVR the Cup race. I can get there because I didn't even check Twitter at all. Get on the Cup race and, what? Like, the first thing that pops up, delayed till 1 p.m. I'm like, screw this. But I watched the first 25 laps. I'm like, there's 2 big runs. And I know we're jumping ahead here, but can
we finish talking about the Xfinity race? Because
I was just trying to say
that was rather interesting.
Yeah, I was just trying to say that the type of runs that the Xfinity Series gets, I don't classify them as runs. I call them line energy. And that's what it needs to be. Not one car, not 2, but a whole line or a group of cars is getting this run. And it's going to shift because the other line's going to back up and they're going to get a run. That's what it needs to be like. Before we get to the finish, major hits, props to safety, both on track inside the car. Those are wicked hits that Sam Mayer and Noah Gragson took in those cars.
That Gregson hit, honestly, like, freaked me out.
That one was really bad. That one looked worse live than it did on the replay, which is what always gets you, right? It always worked. Sometimes the replay, like, oh my gosh, but the live one was worse because of the way the angle of the camera, though the camera that they were using at the point of the wreck when it materialized, the Sam Mayer wreck, Allmendinger's lucky to walk out of there with a 33-point lead because everyone else had issues. But let's talk about the
points leaders in both the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series had very, very bad days, but managed to keep their points buffers
because of other
really huge.
Yes, big. I wrecked, but I came out here with a big points lead. I mean that's a
you can't ask for any way for Talladega to go better. Like, no. if there's any way for Talladega to go, it would probably be that. Because not only do you get wrecked, you don't have to deal with all the BS at the end, which is just unorganized chaos. Yeah. But then, if you can go back and say, oh, hey, I didn't really lose all that many points.
Yeah.
I think everything works out.
Yeah. So this finish. Rob, this is something I wanted to save here. We could have mentioned the Truck Series race, but you want to run 550 miles of racing in a 6-hour window at Talladega at this point in year with no lights. Come on, I mean, come on. It's what we had two or three or 4 red flags across these 2 races. You knew it was going to happen. All right, you knew it was going to happen, and you still think you're going to fit both these races in. Just another reason for the Xfinity Series not to race at Talladega 4 times or twice a year. I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan. I'll talk about that. I'll talk about later. I mean, it's fun. It's good to put on the best show of the race, but you got to start the truck race or whatever race is going first at noon, and I mean, like, drop the green flag at 12:05 and a half. You got to drop the green flag at that point. Give yourself as big a window as possible, so in case the truck race gets delayed, you can move the Xfinity race back, and so on and so forth.
You should always account for at the very least, 10 to 15 minute red flags, at least 2 of them in every race on a super speedway at this point.
Always. So now you get into a situation where you have this caution late in the race, and it's dark. It's dark. It was dark when the caution came out. And then now NASCAR's like, okay, are we going to go back racing or are we going to call it? So NASCAR said, we're going to go back racing. All right, how do we reset the lineup? We go back to the previous loop. When they cross the previous loop, Brandon Brown is the leader of this race. Brandon Jones is second. Justin Allgaier's third. Important to remember here, if they say we're not going back racing, we freeze the field, Brandon Jones is the leader of this race, not Brandon Brown. But NASCAR said we're going to go back racing. So therefore they go back to the previous loop. Well, they click off a couple caution laps. All right, tell me, can you see anything out there? I don't see nothing. Can you see anything out there, pace car? It's pretty dark out here. We need to call it. I mean, the lights are making a difference. Justin Allgaier, I think, was the only guy who wanted to go back racing. He's like, let's go back racing. Until you can't, he tells Eddie DeHaan, until you can't see me on the backstretch, I'm going to go racing. I want to go back racing. Props to Justin Allgaier on that one. But what we get here, you kind of you get a first-time winner. Just like in the truck race. You get a first-time team winner, too. Rob, did you agree with NASCAR's decision to make the decision, we're going to go back racing? And do you think that was the right call? Do you think it was the right call for them to say we're going to go back racing?
Them try and be optimistic, but I think at the end of the day, they were optimistic, and then they were like, oh, wait, here's reality is setting in. It's way too dark for us to do this. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think I would echo some of your statements there that the truck race definitely need to start at least an hour earlier. Now, I understand, and that probably would have helped prevent the overlap with college football, first and foremost. I mean, you're talking about a college football game that's going to start at 3:30 on the dot, and you're talking about a truck race that's guaranteed to at least have 2 red flags. If I'm scheduling that, I'm moving the truck race up by an hour. If I'm going to try and get both races in on time. Yeah. But yeah, I really don't think NASCAR had much of a choice. You can't send them out there if they can't see. You can't send them out there if the spotters can't see. You don't really want to send people home that late, because I think I read somewhere, I think maybe it was Bob Pockers who said it, one of the biggest issues was that the parking lots at Talladega do not exactly have lights.
I don't know if too many tracks do have lights in parking lots.
The ones that host night races do, like Daytona, Richmond, Bristol, those places. But, places that don't have lights don't typically have... Yeah, I'm dead serious. Yeah. That was another thing that Bob Pockers... That was what I believe Pockers mentioned. That's what I read. That was one of the biggest factors in them calling it early, was so that people could get out without, having crashes in the parking lots.
You don't have headlights on your car?
No, I'm sure you do, but you ever try? I'm going to say this. I'm going to defend that take and with that, because my fiance and I went to Walmart the other day, and we were going to get groceries. Now, this was late at night because both of us, she works during the day, but she doesn't want to go by herself to go get groceries. So when she comes home, and after I'm finished working, we go out and we go get groceries. So it's about 8:00 at night by this time, right? and it's because it's now October. It's dark by 8:00, and we pull up to the Walmart, and at first we're like, "Is it closed?" Because there's no lights on. There's lights on inside the Walmart, but there's no lights in the parking lot. There's no lights on the building. You couldn't even tell if it's open, right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Trying to navigate a dark parking lot without being able to see anything and trying not to hit pedestrians or other cars is way more difficult than I would ever expect. Now, I can only imagine this being compounded. Obviously, this is a small Walmart parking lot about 8:00. There's not that many people there. Compound that, take that scenario and move it to Talladega, where there's probably, thousands upon thousands of cars that are trying to all leave the same area at night. Pedestrians walking around. It's tough. I've left Lucas Oil Raceway at night, and let me tell you, even that, I could get lost if I don't remember exactly where I've parked. You want to have some lights in the parking lots, I promise you.
Okay, but again, I'll go back to my headlight statement. I mean, I think I feel
like you're not too much. Headlights only do so much. Headlights only do so much.
But you have everyone else's cars got headlights on. You can see where cars are. You can see people walking down the side. They should be lit up. They should be lit up by. I'm not trying to call you wrong or you can't see or you're a wimp or anything. I'm just saying in general. My take is that I don't know. It's just I get the point. Maybe for safety reasons. We'll put it that way. For personal safety reasons, not necessarily for driving reasons. Again, if you can't determine where you're going,
it's just dangerous. I just think it's dangerous. That's what I'm saying. Personal safety. That's a good way to put it, because it is. It's just a little bit dangerous to go through a parking lot that's not lit. Because keep in mind, most parking lots you go to are relatively well lit. There's at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 or 4 overhead lights. Night lights that kick on, usually at most grocery stores parking lots, at most arenas parking lots, stuff like that. And when you don't have that, it's very obvious that you don't have that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but if you were in that situation, I was in the Walmart, that's why I understood, but that's why I understood what I think Ponkers was trying to say about, trying to get cars out of there earlier, because I could go back to my own anecdotal evidence and be like, yeah, I'd rather have it be a little bit light outside while I'm leaving rather than it be pitch black and me not be able to see what's going on.
I don't know. Maybe I just have more expectations of people. Maybe than
it's not that your expectations of people are low. It's just that
high.
You increase the probability for an accident because the visibility is lower. Just because you have headlights doesn't necessarily mean that you can automatically see what's around you. You can see what's in front of you, but you can't see what's around you.
If there's slow in a parking lot, you shouldn't be going 55 miles. This isn't Talladega Superspeedway. We're not saying you're going.
You're probably going 10 miles an hour tops, but that doesn't mean that if you can't see what's going on around you and there's a bunch of people probably walking. Who knows?
Okay, if you can't, okay, I'm gonna be an a-hole here for a second. If you can't do that, then you shouldn't be driving a car. I'm sorry. I can
do that. I could drive a car, but that doesn't mean that I'm not nervous while I'm doing it.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, that's fair. I don't know. Maybe I just got more confidence, I guess. Then
you might have more confidence. I don't see very well at night to begin with.
Okay, well, that's a different story then. I don't have a problem seeing at night then, I guess.
You're lucky than me. I wish I didn't have.
We have gone off the rails on this
Cup race.
Yeah,
let's talk about the Cup race because this. Yeah. Speaking of rain, this race was postponed from Sunday, and actually, I'm going to be honest with you. I was kind of happy about that because I wanted to watch the Mariners play their last home game, and there was a sliver of a chance that they could make the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. Obviously, they lost to the Angels because. Mariners go to Mariner, but it is what it is. But I got to watch all that game. I got to watch the Seahawks game, which was fine. And then, obviously, Monday I got to actually watch the Talladega race. But rain was basically the primary factor during the entire Saturday, Sunday. And the issue was, today I think you had more windows over Talladega where you were going to get this race in. I don't think you were going to get the race in tomorrow. Which again, so this race was called. This was a rain-shortened race. So actually, you got a race. The truck race was the only race that actually went to its scheduled distance, and then some. Yeah. I think it went into overtime. The Xfinity race was ended early, and the Cup race was ended early.
Yeah.
One due to darkness, the other one due to rain. Now, I'm gonna, I'll say this. So, the nice part about this Cup race that I really liked was that you didn't see any big ones. I liked that. You only saw, 3, 4 car incidents at the max, and most everything was pretty clean. Now, the thing that I did have an issue with, so with this first one, I'll actually talk about this first crash. It all comes down to the pushing and how well these drivers push. I don't think that a lot of these drivers still realize that you can't push in the corners and the tribals. Just because you can sometimes doesn't mean you can all of the time. There's some instances where it might not be smart. And I saw drivers in the truck race do this. I saw drivers in the Xfinity Series do this. I saw drivers in the Cup race do this.
Yeah.
If you could clearly see the dude in front of you is squirrely, maybe don't hit them.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the thing that blows my mind is NASCAR has this whole they totally redid the package for these tracks, and when they did that, they took out the restrictor plate and replaced it with a bigger, thicker tapered spacer, and that tapered spacer allows for these drivers to get off the gas, and it doesn't take a whole half a lap to build back up that horsepower that you lost by burping the throttle like you did with the restrictor plate. That you can regain your speed faster when you burp the throttle. That's the thing that I don't understand. These drivers can burp the throttle, yet they just choose not to now. They're just still running into the driver in front, full throttle basically, and pushing them along. And we will see when we talk about these two accidents where that went wrong, how aggressive these drivers are getting. So this first accident, you had Justin Allgaier get turned in the tri-oval, and he takes out Kyle Larson. So you have the potential now. Kyle Larson is basically, he's got a nice little buffer like Allmendinger did, but you still don't want to lose valuable points. They have to try and get the car back out there. Right. And damaged vehicle policy is what it is. I don't think it's necessary at this point. I think it's kind of been more of a detriment than what I think NASCAR thinks, because what you saw was Larson went right back out there in a pretty much hastily repaired car trying to make minimum speed, and the tire went down. And he put it in the wall, and then he goes back on the damaged vehicle clock, and they got to keep doing it all over again. He ended up getting off of it and ended up beating minimum speed, but at the same time, that's all that stuff that Larson should have been able to lose like 1 lap or 2 on pit road and try and fix the car to the best of his ability and not bring out another caution. You know what I mean? I feel like NASCAR's kind of, I know they made their bed with this damaged vehicle policy, but I feel like it's not working like it intended, because I feel like it's in more cases, especially at Talladega, and in some cases even at Bristol, like short tracks like that, I feel like it's more of a hindrance than it does, because there's drivers out there that, they could repair their cars in more than 5 minutes, whatever, and the cars will be a lot better than when you give them this time. When you put them in this box, they're going as hastily and trying to have to cut corners. When you give them as much time as they can, and they can allot, and they can say, oh, okay, well, we're going to lose 2 laps. All right, well, if we can at least repair the car in a satisfactory way, we have a chance at making those 2 laps up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of my biggest issue with the damaged vehicle policy the way it is. Yeah. Because of the fact that Larson went back out there before his car was really ready to be prepared. They just sent him back out there because they had to, because if they didn't, he was going to be essentially disqualified from the race and be forced to retire.
Yeah, he has to. Well, part of the issue is that you go, the clock starts like when you enter pit road and doesn't stop until you exit. It should only run when you're in the pit box. So NASCAR's automatically already taking time away from them before they even touch the car, which I've never understood that. It was originally 5 minutes, then they gave him an extra minute, now it's 6. And that 6 is supposed to cover that, or that extra minute is supposed to cover that, but if you make multiple trips down pit road, great, I have 4 minutes instead of 3, because for certain tracks, or however long it takes you to get from pit entrance to your box, out of your box out, and that's if you follow the max speed to a T, every time. And my guess is that's not always the case. I agree with that. I like the damaged vehicle policy because it prevents some stuff from going out there. But what I get your point, and I do agree with it, is that it causes the teams, maybe they don't take a shortcut in some cases. Maybe they just they're rushing and they overlook something like, oh, I need to get this. I've got to pull the fender out. Now I got a tire rub, and that fender, the really simple fix, but I was more concentrated on this broken arm inside the car above the tire that may also cause a tire rub, but I didn't get the real little simple thing. So, yeah, I would say that it would be nice to see. All right, your car has been damaged in a wreck, like a legitimate wreck. You didn't drift up, you didn't make a mistake, and you hit the wall. That's kind of a cheap damaged vehicle policy deal if that ever kicks in, or if you cause a caution via that way. But if you're in a legitimate wreck, all right, you are now on the damaged vehicle policy. You must get up to speed in X amount of laps, whatever laps that is. I'm surely it can vary from track to track. Instead of fixing it on a clock time, because as you said, you're gonna miss. We've seen it where it misses. There's more misses than there is hits, than especially at super speedways. Because how many times has there been a debris caution laps after a big one? Like, well, that probably came off of this car. Oh, there, orange, that came off of that car right there. That's pretty obvious. Only orange car out there in the field, So, yeah, it'd be nice if you just got to hit minimum speed, fix your car, get it done the first time. If you don't get it done right the first time, we might park you. So,
yeah, but I also wanted to talk about the pushing that we're seeing here. So this Alex Bowman accident that happened, what you saw was, it was kind of like an accordion effect a little bit, but I feel like it could have been entirely prevented by just not being such... The drivers seem to feel like they need to push so aggressively in order to make things happen. And I understand that they're probably put into a box with the runs that these cars get now, even though NASCAR seems to have tried to slow them down and make the runs not as apparent. The issue is they're still happening.
Xfinity spoiler versus Cup spoiler.
Yeah, that very, very good point. And that's something that I think has caused a lot of... It caused pretty much all three accidents today, is an accordion effect due to runs and brought on by guys pushing way harder than they need to. Like, these guys are like, oh, hey, we can tandem. And it's like, okay, great. But, when you guys tandem, you weren't like slam drafting into the back of the guy. You were literally guy in front of you was dragging the brake, and you were just slowly but surely getting up to them and then locking together and then going. This isn't bump drafting. This isn't tandeming. This is just slam drafting. This is just a complete disregard for your fellow racer. It just didn't seem right, especially with the Chase Elliott deal. So here's what happened with Alex Bowman. So Bowman, he's on the outside. He's leading this outside line, and he gets a bump from Stenhouse coming off of this turn 2. So he gets a bump from Stenhouse going down the back. Well, now Chase Elliott, who lagged back, gets a run on Stenhouse and starts pushing him. Stenhouse then suddenly starts to get a lot closer to Bowman. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to push Bowman going in right before we go into 3, and that's going to hopefully push Bowman out ahead into 3. The problem with that was Bowman's car got out too far ahead, and Stenhouse was getting pushed too hard by Chase.
Yep.
That by the time Stenhouse got to Bowman was not ready, and nor was Stenhouse to lock up. Stenhouse had too much steam coming from behind because Elliott was pushing him that he ended up hitting Bowman before he was square. And it's a racing deal. It's not necessarily Stenhouse's fault. It's not. I mean, you can kind of put some of the blame on Chase Elliott, I guess, but it's not like Elliott's aware of what's going on, a whole car in front of him, and it's not like his spotter is telling him that either. I mean, he should be. A good spotter would relay him that information, but if that doesn't get relayed to him, there's nothing he can do.
Was Chase being pushed behind him?
No, Chase, okay. Not that I saw. He just had a run, and he locked up with Stenhouse, who really wasn't ready for it, who ended up getting into Bowman, because Bowman wasn't ready for it either, and neither Stenhouse nor Bowman were lined up perfectly, and it ended up turning Bowman into the outside wall and creating a big mess. Kyle Busch got a piece of it, just a lot of stuff. And then to bring out the final caution, the same thing happened with Ryan Preece running up front, and he ended up wrecking. Most everybody avoided it except for William Byron. Byron hit him, and Byron was just sitting there in the back, biding his time, waiting for everything to happen. one car spins and he can't avoid it. It's just like, man, you got to be kidding me. You're not safe anywhere at Talladega. You're not safe because Bowman got wrecked at the front of the pack, and then Byron gets wrecked at the very back of the pack. You're just not safe anywhere, man. You're just not safe at Talladega.
I think it goes back to like we said so many times before. The Xfinity package was organized chaos. You were able to race around. You were able to make moves and make progress without bumping the guy in front of you to get, to march forward. I just don't understand. I mean, how could you as an owner in the Cup Series, like, how are you guys not wrecking all the time? Yeah, there's going to be wrecks in the Xfinity Series. Absolutely, was going to be. There were wrecks. But they're caused by more misjudgment. They're caused by misjudgment instead of I bumped a guy because I had a run. It's old school. It's like what we grew up watching at Talladega. Most of these, or you get on a guy's wrong corner of the car, then you're going to turn them. But that's different from bumping even. So, I'm not a fan of the package. It's better than what it was a year or two ago as far as the runs are concerned, but when you feel the need to take, I gotta get this, I need to get to the front and stay there, and I knew that needed to get that any means necessary. If that means bumping the guy in front of me and him not be prepared, I mean, that's not racing. That's just survival. That's just survival. That's a lottery. That's a lottery.
It is. It does feel like a lottery. It does literally feel like a giant lottery sometimes.
Yeah. And guess who won the lottery today?
NASCAR. I feel like we're watching. Yeah. Let's talk about the winner. Actually, before we get to the winner, because the winner is like the biggest thing to take about it. If anything, the winner should be like the whole thing of this podcast. But we'll get to this in a minute. I wanted to talk about Bowman and Byron took huge hits and points, and both of them are now in basically must-win situations going into the Roval.
Yeah, and their team got a really good shot at winning that.
Yeah. That's going to be rough. I mean, two guys in front of him, I think Harvick is still below the cut line, and can't remember who the other driver is right now off the top of my head. But
is it Bell?
No, Bell had a pretty decent day. Bell had a pretty decent day. You'll have to look it up for me.
I'm pulling it up.
But Bowman and Byron are pretty much in absolute must-win situations at the Roval. Talladega not going the way that they probably wanted it to absolutely killed their points today.
Yeah,
Kyle Larson.
Especially for Bell. Yeah,
it is Bell? Okay. Well, yeah. Bell had a really good run at Talladega. I think he finished top 5. So that should have helped him a lot. I don't think he's going to be in a must-win situation at the Roval, but he definitely needs a really good finish at the Roval in order to have any chance at moving on. But like I said, as for Bowman and Byron, and they were not as fortunate as Larson to have all those extra playoff points that Larson has. Larson had that nice buffer, and even then, he was able to go back out there and still, earn some extra points, whereas Byron and Bowman, Byron got taken out right at the end of the race, so he had no other opportunity to make up any points, and his day was done anyway. Bowman was taken out, like, right before the stage 1 ended, and, that was just, he was done at that point. What do you got to say, Josh?
Oh, I was just going to say, we didn't talk about this earlier. It was actually came from this morning. But Jordan Bianchi does report that 2311 has secured a second charter.
I heard that, but they didn't release any further information.
They didn't say who, so interesting.
People are speculating that they've either bought one of the Rick Ware charters or that they've bought the 38 charter from Front Row. Yeah, it's one of those. I don't know which one is getting sold. But let's talk about the winner. Let's talk about the winner of Talladega.
This is big.
Because this is huge. So the yellow flag comes out after the Ryan Prix and William Byron accident. And basically, it's right at the very end of the stage. Now, NASCAR, keep in mind, changed the rules a little while ago, maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they changed the rules where the race is now official at halfway, regardless of whether or not that comes before or after the stage 2.
Correct.
So this race was official at the halfway point, which I believe was lap 94.
Yeah.
And stage 2, I can't remember off the top of my head what stage 2 ended.
Was it 50-50, 88?
It might have been. I don't know. But point is, this race was official.
Yeah.
And as soon as that race became official, it seemed like everybody started to get a lot more aggressive, and everybody started to tell, because everybody was relaying to him, hey, we got to sell coming right out of here. Rain's coming. Rain's going to be here soon. This could be for the win. Go. And Bubba Wallace, man, drives all the way up to the front, blocks both lanes, does everything he can. He doesn't block foolishly, which I got to give him creds on. I really appreciated the way Bubba Wallace was. He was not making his blocks like at the last minute, like I've seen other drivers do throughout the weekend, or even at Daytona in August, and Talladega and Daytona again earlier this year. He did not make egregious, surprising, dangerous blocks. He was making blocks that he was supposed to, where he just moved up a little. His spotter was telling him which lane was moving, which lane was coming, and he just went right up there, and they pushed him on. They just kept pushing him on, and then once the next lane started coming, he just moved right down there. It was genius. It was really genius by what Bubba was doing. It was really smart, really good racing, and he kept his nose clean the whole race. Came out there, and as soon as that rain started coming down, man, I think everybody on Twitter, because Facebook was down today, by the way. Facebook was down today, so thank God Facebook was down today on the day Bubba wins a race, right? Thank God. We don't have to deal with that cesspool of garbage. Well, it's back up now, so unfortunately we have to deal with it now. But for a while there, for a brief period of time, there was this moment of bliss between all NASCAR fans that are open-minded and not hateful bigots. Where we were just like, man, we can enjoy this great moment in NASCAR history. Finally, it's been since 1963 that a black driver has been in victory lane in a Cup Series event. We could finally say that no longer, we broke that today, finally. And it was huge for Bubba because, you look at how hard he's been trying, how much that team has improved. I don't think really anybody pegged them for a win unless you had them as in some ridiculous, unless you were putting some crazy high expectations on them. I don't think many people expected them to get a win this year. I think a lot of people expected that win to maybe come next year at the very least. So for them to get a win this year is huge. And this was Booty Barker's first career Cup Series victory and over 400 attempts as a Cup Series crew chief. His first victory. I love it for Bubba. I love it for Booty Barker. I love it for 2311. This was Denny Hamlin's first career win as an owner. This was McDonald's first win since 1994 as a sponsor. A lot of things happened.
Michael Jordan's first win as an owner too.
Well, Michael Jordan, but I'm thinking Denny Hamlin. The guy, I mean, as soon as that race ended, and as soon as he figured, he was like, oh, hey, he goes over to Bubba and he starts showing him his phone or whatever. And I'm pretty sure Denny had to go back to his hauler and be like, I got to go put on my owner's shirt now because I'm going to go be in the owner's victory lane. It's kind of different for him. He's used to going to victory lane in his fire suit, not having to change. Now he's going as he's got the 2311 polo on, going out to victory lane already in street clothes. I love that when Corey LaJoie came up to him in street clothes. Corey LaJoie was like, yeah, this race is over. It's not getting restarted. I'm going to go change and go congratulate Bubba. And Bubba's sitting there like, what are you doing? The race isn't over yet. Don't jinx it like this. You know what I mean? And Corey's like, what are you talking about? It's going to rain. I just changed my clothes.
I couldn't jinx it if I tried.
No, exactly.
I could walk under a broken mirror, black cat passed by, and I was going to change this one. Yeah, I got a text from buddy down here, and he's like, yeah, I think this race might be over. You mentioned, first win by African Americans since Wendell Scott won.
1963.
December 1963.
Yeah, December 1st, they said, I think.
Let's recognize one very important point. He's the first African American to celebrate a victory.
That is a very good point.
Wendell Scott did not get a chance to celebrate his win. And the family just recently got the trophy. Mm-hmm. A replica, but they just recently got the trophy for that win. I can't put into words what I think this means for a lot of people.
I've read some great Twitter threads from black race fans that have been very moving to say the least. To see them feel like this weight has been lifted off their shoulders. I can't speak for them because, I'm white. I have privilege. I can't, sit there and say I know anything like what this would be like. But to see so many black race fans come out and feel like, hey man, this is a win for all of us. This is huge. Finally somebody that looks like me is in victory lane, and I think that's really huge. That's really great for the next generation of fan as well. That's great for the sport. That's great. I mean, I pulled up the ESPN app because I was looking up.
Please tell me they got this thing right. Please.
Oh, they did. But he was the cover story on SportsCenter going into it, and I'm sitting here thinking like, man, if when on a Monday afternoon, NASCAR is the lead-in to the afternoon SportsCenter, we won, dude. Like NASCAR, we just made a big win. I mean, that's huge for the sport.
And I know it's a rain delay, but you mentioned it earlier. Bubba's one heck of a plate racer. I'm walking into this year with them. I'm like, okay, if he's going to win a race this year, it's either going to be at Daytona, Talladega, or Bristol. Those are going to be the 3 track, or Martinsville because he runs well there. Those are going to be the 4 tracks he's got an opportunity to win at and capitalize at. This is a big day. When I saw that he had won, I immediately, it was really weird. The sensation I went through, like my body got chills. I'm like, this is, and I'm not saying that. I hope I'm not coming off of thinking this as a PR standpoint, but I'm thinking this more as Bubba and his journey that he's been on. And you talk about fans that say the weight's been lifted off. What about his weight? And the criticism that he's faced, the criticism that he's faced this year alone. Them trying to say, well, this team should be better than where they're at.
Did you listen to the Ryan Blaney interview after the race where Bob Pockris kind of asked him some of that stuff about how he felt about Bubba and everything? And
I did not see that one.
He was very adamant. He was like, because those two are real close.
Those two are tight. Those two are best friends. Yeah.
And in fact, Ryan said in that quote, this is different, but he said Bubba was the first person to congratulate him when he won his first race at Pocono, so he wanted to be the first person to congratulate Bubba when he won his first race. So Ryan Blaney, literally, as soon as he started to see that rain pick up, he bolted over there and went and tried to so that he could congratulate him. But anyway, he was talking about, he's like, I've seen some of the things that he goes through. I've seen some of the things that like he has to read. He's subjected to just the online hate, the online abuse. It's just horrible to see and read some of those things. And Ryan was talking about how, he doesn't let it break him and stuff. Yeah. And that's really, when you talk about how much it means to Bubba, it's like, this is validating. This is validation, and it doesn't matter. This is the thing is, we already see this cesspool of garbage people on the internet that are trying to say, oh, he didn't win this race. It's an asterisk. It was rain shortened. Yeah, well, screw off, because most people in rain shortened races get lucky because they pit the right time, or, they just so happen to have a great strategy, and that's how those crazy things happen. No, this was Bubba literally just ran straight up to the front because he knew the rain was on his way and nobody could pass him. Yeah. And to be honest with you, that's how you win a race. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He just went straight. He just like, I'm going to run this race. I'm going to run, and I'm going to lead as many laps as I can, because this race could end at any given moment. I don't know when this race is going to end. I just know that I need to be out front when it does, and that's exactly what he did. And I don't think you could take anything away from him. I think anybody, first of all, anybody who's trying to take anything away from him, I think we all know what you're all about, and we really just want you to go away. But besides that, I think that this is a very important moment and step for NASCAR as a whole, to especially after everything that happened last year, to have it all kind of culminate in this moment. I mean, this is Bubba Wallace, basically. I mean, this is his home track too, Talladega. Yeah. He's from Alabama. This is he not only did he get his first win at his home track. He became the first person of his ethnicity to do so in over close to, like, what is this now, 60? Let's go. 60 years?
Yeah, 60.
Yeah, almost 60 years. I mean, that's crazy. That's huge for him. You can't take anything away. This was a team, and this was a team win, because I look at that. I look at this, the fact that how much that team has improved since Booty Barker took over as crew chief. I love Booty Barker finally getting that monkey off his back as well. Because if people could talk about Bubba all they want, because he's the story, but us NASCAR fans who are already familiar with Bubba, we're also thinking about Booty Barker, because he's been there for decades. Working his butt off to try and get to where he was, going through, backmarker team after backmarker team, and basically helping bring them up into the top 20 in standings when they probably shouldn't have been. You know what I mean? I mean, Michael Waltrip Racing, there's no freaking way Michael Waltrip Racing should have been any better than it was in 2007 and 2008. But Booty Barker came along, and sure enough, they improved quite a bit that next season. And so it's just great to see what he's brought to that team, to 2311, to see how that team has grown. I didn't expect this race win. And it's really big. It's really huge to see that they pulled it off. They got this win. And like I said this earlier, this was not a strategy win. This was a pure horsepower, speed, and just a little bit of luck.
And that's every Talladega race. That's every Talladega race. So, Rob, 1 minute for one. Congratulations to Bubba and all that. Big day for him. Big day for NASCAR, but more importantly, stressing this is a big day for him and in his career, in his journey that he's been on. But Rob, I think we need to probably go into the weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about some other races. The ARCA Menard Series was at Salem this weekend. Jesse Love won that race. It wasn't Ty Gibbs. Oh, wow. How about that? And then Indy Lights wrapped up their season at Mid-Ohio this week. Kyle Kirkwood won the first race, then Linus Lundqvist won the second, but Kyle Kirkwood was crowned the champion. I think everybody pretty much knew that was going to happen, and now it'll be interesting to see where Kirkwood ends up next year. He's got scholarships, so he's supposed to run at least 3 IndyCar races next year. The question is, where will he run those races? Will he be in an Andretti car, or will somebody else pick him up? Who knows? Will Andretti run another car, an extra car? Who knows? We could be very interesting stuff. But great job for Kyle Kirkwood to win that race. And then Indy Pro 2000 finished up their season also at Mid-Ohio. Race 1 was won by Christian Rasmussen. Race 2 was won by James Rowe Jr. Christian Rasmussen ended up being the champion, so it looks like he will move up to Indy Lights next year. Not sure who he'll be with, but we'll find out. And then USF 2000 also wrapped up their season this week, Mid-Ohio. I'm going to butcher this, and I'm sorry. Race 1 was won by Yuvan Sundaramurthy. I think I got that right.
English sounds good to me.
And then how about Race 2 winner? He's got a much easier name to say, Josh Green. And then the champion was Kiko Porto. So Kiko Porto having a great season in USF 2000. He'll probably move up to Indy Pro 2000 next year. Josh, how about outstanding performance? Let's go into the outstanding performance. Who is your pick for this week?
I just filled mine in. We've talked about him today. I want to go with Brandon Brown. I could have gone, honestly, okay, I'm going to go with all three. I'm going to give Blaine Perkins a shout out for winning stage 2 of the Xfinity Series race, because he
Is it acceptable if I say that I had never heard of Blaine Perkins until that Talladega race?
Well, he won 3 ARCA races last year in the West Series and drove for Bob Bucati. Maybe
that's my problem. I don't really watch ARCA West.
Well, I don't really.
I should,
yeah,
but I don't.
Yeah. Well, anyway, okay, I'll give you a pass. But so he had a career day in the Xfinity Series because he hasn't finished better than 20 something. I think it might be just 20th flat, but he went up there, defended really well, didn't drive like a fool in his 7th career Xfinity Series start, 2nd race at Daytona. Not saying he would or most do, but he drove a smart up front, didn't cause any issues, wins the stage. I give Jordan Anderson a shout out because he pushed Brandon Brown, who I'm going to give the other one a shout out to, because Brandon Brown, underfunded, family run team. He does pretty well at super speedways, and for him to pick up the win, yes, It's a super speedway win. Yes, he's had an opportunity to win on strategy a couple times this year, a mile and a half. Cautions didn't fall right for him. But good for him. Good for all three of those guys. They had good little performances here and there. Good sports performance. And Jordan Anderson, by the way, that was his only super speedway car this year. So he said, "I'm going to hang back. I'm going to go for it later in the race." And he walked away with a good, clean car. So he's got one free car for next year to take with him. He doesn't have to buy a new one or build an additional one. So, Rob, who's your outstanding performance?
And give mine to Chase Briscoe. This is somebody who rebounded to finish 14th after having a lot of damage on his car from the early start of the race. The car was basically more or less 50% taped by the end of the race, Talladega, and he finished 14th in it. So just a big, gritty drive. He became a dad over the week, too, which is even better. But a great drive from Chase Briscoe overall. I know it's been a pretty rough go of it here, his first Cup season, but I think a lot of that is just because Stewart Haas has really struggled. You've seen how Kevin Harvick has struggled. You've seen how Almirola has struggled. Cole Custer has struggled, and so naturally, Chase Briscoe being the rookie, I think he's going to struggle if all of his teammates are struggling. But man, 14th place finish this week. Great job for him. Great job, and especially like I said, doing it with a car that was covered in tape at the end of the race, man. That's not easy to do. So I got to give it to him. Let's move on now next to the upshift and downshift segment. Go ahead and start with this. The upshift, downshift segment are fun. You can play along too. Use the hashtag RobinRoller wherever you are listening on Twitter and whatever. Maybe even Instagram. I don't monitor the Instagram hashtag, but I monitor the Twitter hashtag. So anytime you guys got answers for us, go ahead and shoot them our way. Starting off with our first question today. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series expands back to 23 races, but only 23 races. Do you upshift or downshift this move by NASCAR?
I really wish we had one or two more races. I really wish. So I kind of want to downshift, but I upshift and go back up, and then leave it at 22. But again, I think the reason there's 22 this year, this is my theory. Eldora was supposed to be race number 23 this year, and when Tony pulled the plug at the 11th hour, they just didn't replace it. But I really wish there was one or two more races that, even if there had to be companion events, 23 just feels too short of a season for the Truck Series, and but I'm glad they're back to 23. So maybe it's more of a neutral. I'm upshifting and downshifting this one.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I'm kind of downshifting because I feel like at 23 is a little bit light compared to the other series. I feel like they could at the very least go to. I'm a big proponent of standalone weekends for the Trucks and Xfinity Series, so I'm kind of sitting here thinking, well, it'd be nice if they went to like a different track out wherever, tried something new. They won't, but whatever. So I'm gonna downshift just because I think they could add more, but they didn't. Next question here. The Cup Series races at Talladega Superspeedway are deserving of remaining 500 miles in length. Do you upshift or downshift this, Josh?
I wrote this question before the race was called.
It's okay. I think it's a relevant question.
It is a relevant question. I'm downshifting. Again, I downshift. It's 100 less miles of potential mayhem and 100 miles less potential for riding around the outside. It's hard to not see the urgency when it comes to the Daytona 400-mile race. I feel like there's just more going on, if that makes sense. Throughout the entirety of the race, there's more of an urgency to stay up front, be up front. And again, just it's not the attrition, it's not the battle it used to be. The only races that should be longer than 400 miles on an oval are the Daytona 500, the Coca-Cola 600, and the Southern 500. It goes back to that point.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on that. I'm actually going to upshift this because I think that Talladega, especially races on super speedways, they can get away with being 500 miles because lap times happen so quickly. You know what I mean? You're lapping there at around 200 miles an hour at over 2.5 miles at 200 miles an hour. 500 miles doesn't feel like anything. I feel like going to Talladega for 500 miles, it feels about the same length as any other 400 mile or 300 mile race. You know what I mean?
Fair.
It just goes by that fast. I don't really mind it. I think the only detriment that I think that it has is the fact that, you just end up with more torn up race cars over a longer period of time. But I'm sure if at some point, if they could figure out the right package again, I'm sure that'll probably. I mean, you still see big ones, but I don't. I'm fine with seeing like one big one. One big one is okay, but when we get into like 4 or 5 big ones every plate race, it's just ridiculous. That's what I have a problem with. Is like especially at Daytona, last Talladega race, the Daytona 500. You know, when we only have like 10 or 12 cars finish the race without damage, that's a problem. That's not good. We got very lucky this week because of the rain, and we didn't see a lot of big ones. I'm sure we would have seen more big ones had the race gone to its full, a lot of distance. But I'm going to upshift this for now because I think that Talladega, those are the races that can stay 500 miles because it's just what they are. I feel like they should be 500 miles, and I don't feel like they take up any more time than the standard 400-mile race on a mile and a half. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So next question here. The 2022 NASCAR calendar includes 15 triple-header weekends between Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks. Do you upshift or downshift this move by NASCAR?
Well,
give me dead air. Give me an answer.
I'm going to say I'm neutral, and here's why. I downshift because we're going to venues multiple times. I upshift because I feel like it's time for, I think, the sport to take advantage of this style that they're going to. And it's been going like this for a few years, and COVID only expedited it. And I think it's time for NASCAR to kind of adopt an open wheel style scheduling format where everyone goes to all the races every single weekend. It's boring as heck, right? But if you're able to go to all these racetracks where you can, I actually sat down and Rob and I, we love to make schedules. I made a schedule on Excel on a spreadsheet, and I wrote it down. And 36 races, 36 points races for the Cup. They go to the Daytona Superspeedway, the Oval twice. They go to Bristol and Martinsville twice. Every other track. We go to Charlotte twice because of the Roval and the Oval, and they actually go to the Daytona Road Course because I had to fit that in there. But everywhere else, they go to once. And I included Pikes Peak. I included Memphis. I included the Milwaukee Mile, and I included Iowa. If that's what it takes to get these diverse schedules, I don't care. Do it. If you're going to go 15 triple header weekends, and there's more than that. When you think about it, the truck has IRP is kind of a standalone date, but Knoxville and Mid Ohio are their only standalone races. Portland is Xfinity Series only standalone event. Everywhere else, for 20 of the truck races, they're accompanying the Cup. You're already halfway there. Might as well just say, okay, well, X track, you're losing a date, and we're going to replace it with the Milwaukee Mile. We're going to replace it with Memphis. We're going to replace it with Pikes Peak. We're going to replace it with Iowa. I know that's crazy. Rob, you probably don't like that idea, and that's okay. But if we're going to go this far out and say we're going to bring everyone every time, might as well give it the most diverse schedule as possible and go to as many markets as possible. That's my point about it.
My opinion is simple. I would prefer to see more standalone events in the Xfinity and Truck Series because I think that's what made those series unique. I understand what NASCAR is trying to do, but that doesn't mean that I like it. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say about it. And I'm going to move on to the next one here. Beginning in 2023, and this is something that we already touched on at the beginning of the show, so I'm going to probably keep mine. I touched on it. Josh will give his reaction here. So beginning in 2023, the Middle East will host at least 4 F1 Grands Prix. 4 races in the Middle East is too many. Do you upshift or downshift that?
I downshift. I don't. Liberty Media said we want to go to destinations, destination cities, destination locations, and tracks. Abu Dhabi is really the only attractive place to go there, and I can't afford to go there. You have to be okay. I probably can't afford to go there, but I'm not going to be staying in a place I'm comfortable staying. Probably. It's just not. I don't. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The Middle East is just not the best place for most people to go. All right, it's not the safest place, especially if you're from this country. It's just not.
Or if you're a woman.
Or if you're a woman. Or unless you're not accompanied by a military armada. It's just not. It's not a great place to go. It's money talking, obviously, but we're going to be going to the Middle East 4 times, in Germany 0? What? I don't get it. I don't. They got to do a lot in that part of the world from a human rights standpoint, as you mentioned. And then on top of that, they got to do a lot just from a safety standpoint for me to even think about going there. I don't understand the move. Abu Dhabi is probably the only one that can say, "Yep, we're deserving of an F1 race." When you look at those 2 boxes alone. But this is strictly. I would love to see, and it might be available. Liberty Media is a publicly traded company, right? Is it?
I don't know. I have no idea.
If it is, we might. You did the right digging. You could find some records. But if I had to guess, if they say the going rate to host an F1 race is like $25 million, I would not be surprised to find out that like Saudi Arabia and Qatar are paying $40 to host those races. And that's not necessarily because, hey, we're willing to pay more. It's because someone's charging them more to go there. That would be my guess. Because they can. Because they got the oil. Because, like you mentioned earlier with the tourism part, I'm rambling on here, but you mentioned with the tourism part, it's kind of hard to export sand. There's not a big demand for that.
Anakin Skywalker immediately hates you, so you're definitely not going to get the Death Star to come to your place.
Well, you know what? I know who that is, but I don't watch Star Wars, so I don't know why he.
It's a prequel meme in episode 2. There's really episode 2 is really not the best directed film. Let's be honest. It's really poorly directed.
I have no idea.
Episode 1 as well is really poorly directed. Episode 3 is my personal favorite because it's directed a lot better. But episode 2 has this horrible direction, and it's just George Lucas is just not a very good director. At least for those films. But anyway, there's a scene in there where Anakin is talking to his love interest Padme, and he brings up sand, and he goes, "I hate sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere." And he's just so deadpan, so monotone. Like, why would you say that? Such a pointless throwaway line in the film. You know,
that might
especially
be the definition of a throwaway line. Dang.
And it's not a throwaway line anymore because it's a meme.
Okay, well, all right. Well, as I was saying, they got to find. Obviously, they're trying to find a way to live in a world where petroleum is at the very least not as needed, but they just got things they got to fix before they can even get to that point. And I just don't find it necessary that there's 4 Middle Eastern races next year, let alone even 3. I'd rather go to Abu Dhabi 4 times. I'd rather go, if they want to do that.
Oh my gosh! All I'm asking for is for the Bahrain outer circuit to become permanent, and outside of that, I don't care if we never go to the Middle East again. As long as I'll be honest with you. My take on it. You already know my take on it. But if I'm being honest, the only acceptable race in the Middle East to me is on the Bahrain outer circuit, because that was the best race I've ever seen in Formula 1, and I think they could do it again. If they just ran that outer circuit every single time, they made a permanent edition, the best race on the calendar. I mean, you want to get people to go in the middle of nowhere in Bahrain, guarantee you that's how you do it. You put on the best Formula 1 race you'll see anywhere. Yeah. And that's the only possible way that Bahrain's going to have any form of tourism is they got to make that track run the outer layout, because it's awesome. That outer layout is so cool, so fast. I love it. Anyway, that's my take on it, Josh. I think it's time for you to roll into your Rollers featured race. See what I did there? No pun intended.
Yeah.
Go ahead, take it from here. Go ahead and take it from here.
All right.
I'm giving you the floor because we're hitting 2 hours, so floor's all yours, man.
All right, so if you've been a NASCAR fan as long as Rob and I have, the finish to Saturday night's Xfinity Series race at Talladega stirred up some memories of a notorious Cup Series race from 2004. And that race was the Aaron's 499 from April 25th of that year. So the race was the 9th of 36 races that season. And who didn't qualify for that 43-car field? Larry Foyt, Todd Bodine, Kirk Shelmerdine. And then Andy Belmont and Andy Hillenberg withdrew from the entry list before the race. 1 week prior to this, I'll throw this in there, Rusty Wallace was the winner at Martinsville, which proved to be his 55th and final career victory. This race was prior to the Talladega repave, which came a few years later, but you love to watch this race and races from this time frame at Talladega because the cars are so bumpy. They're bouncing because the track is so... It's old, it's worn out. Could you imagine that with the no ride height rule today with these cars? They'd be dragging and sparking all the time. Maybe we need to let these tracks wear out and just maybe we should repave them where they have bumps in them. So we have to put a minimum ride height. There you go. There's an idea. Ricky Craven was the first to drive in trouble, but it's more so just kind of happened to him. Lap 3, smoke billowed out from his Tide Ride Chevrolet. Caution was out for oil cleanup. And his day was done. Really just gut-wrenching interview from inside the car when I watched this. He was just like demoralized. But that's kind of the way 2004 for that team. The next caution was on lap 22 when Matt Kenseth drifted up the track from the bottom lane just a little bit to the tri-oval and hit Kevin Harvick's left rear. Kenseth spun in the middle of the field between Robbie Gordon and Kurt Busch. Casey Kane checked up to avoid Kenseth and was turned by Elliott Sadler. Miraculously, no other cars were collected in this incident, and Kenseth even spun through the middle of the racing groove. Like, he spun in the middle of the track. In the middle of the cars. Cars are splitting them left and right. No cars were involved. It was the craziest thing. I totally had forgotten about that one. Debris on the track on lap 35 and oil cleanup on lap 68 brought up the caution 2. The day's only big one occurred on lap 84. The commercial break was interrupted when in turns 3 and 4 became Calamity Corner. Contact between Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch triggered the wreck. Stewart had a run and just kind of tapped the left rear of Busch. Went up there and kissed it. And Busch spun around into the apron, then shot back up the track into the field of cars. The drivers were involved were Kenny Wallace, Rusty Wallace, Terry Labonte, Casey Kane, Scott Riggs, Ryan Newman, Jeremy Mayfield, Dave Blaney, Derek Cope, and of course Kurt Busch. Kenny Wallace was driving the number 00 for Michael Waltrip Racing and had a DEI engine in the car. Terry Labonte pushed Rusty Wallace out of the grass so both could get to pit road. I mean, just the durability of these cars was amazing. Matt Yoakum reported that since the 24 of Jeff Gordon driving a Pepsi scheme, hint for later, and the number 48 of Johnson's cars looked very similar from a distance, Gordon's team added extra yellow neon tape to the valence spoiler and shark fin panel on the rear window to assist spotter Ron Fields. By the way, great additions. It made the car. I love the neon on this car that it had on the final one. I love that. On lap 115, Michael Waltrip cut across the nose of Jeff Gordon, and Waltrip was caught by Kerry Earnhardt. All but running within the top 10. Kerry spun to the inside wall on the backstretch, nearly saved it, but dig-tagged the wall pretty hard on the passenger side. Kerry would be running at the end, but was over 40 laps down in 35th. After a couple minor yellows, Tony Stewart spun after hitting Jimmy Johnson off turn 4 with 13 to go. He gathered it up without hitting anything and drove through the grass without any issues. Good old Valence never lets us down. Never did, never will. Valence. Good times. Now, time for the notorious finish. The race restarted on lap 180 under single file conditions, as was the norm then. Dale Jr. was leading, and Harvick dived to the inside of Mark Martin, who was laying back and hoping for a push from Harvick. As the field stacked up through turns 1 and 2, Gordon drove around the outside and slotted behind Mark Martin. on the backstretch, with Casey Mears pushing Harvick to their left as they hunted down Little E. Harvick took the lead when it pushed for Mears by the time the field entered turn 3. Then with 7 laps to go, coming to 6 to go, Michael Waltrip pushed Dale Jr. around the outside of Harvick through the tri-oval, and the crowd erupted. Waltrip's momentum was stalled out because no one followed him, but Jr. was able to get to the front of Harvick and took the lead, so he kind of ditched his teammate there. Leading the middle line was Jeff Gordon. On the backstretch with 6 to go, Gordon had a push from Johnson, which Jr. attempted to block, but Gordon dived low. Now Jr. was on the outside with Johnson pushing him and Harvick behind Gordon. Gordon and Jr. Made ever so slight contact exiting turn 4, but managed not to wreck. Now, with 5 to go, Jamie McMurray was leading the outside line with Waltrip and Ricky Rudd behind him, and they were making headway to the front. Then as the field traveled to turn 3, it happened. Dale Jr. had a run on Gordon's outside, and looked like by the time they were going to exit turn 4, Little E would be the leader. But Brian Vickers, Gordon's teammate, spun with 5 laps to go. They were in the window. Red flag could no longer be displayed. At the time, there was a rule that said, we are in this window. We will not throw the red flag. The crowd cheered because they were convinced starters stand first. But when NASCAR went back, they determined Jeff Gordon was the leader of the race at the time of caution, not Dale Jr. So what caused the caution? Vickers was sandwiched between Jamie McMurray on his outside and Mears to his inside, got loose, arrow loose, lost control and spun, narrowly avoiding multiple cars, but Ricky Rudd did tag him in the left rear. So 3 laps to go under caution. The field did not receive the 1 to go as they passed under the flagman's box. That flipped the race to lap 187 of lap 188. That effectively ended the race. They were not going to restart this race. Can't get 1 to go on the white flag lap. It's a white flag lap. Can't get it. So remember, it wasn't too long before this that NASCAR instituted the freeze the field rule to prevent drivers from racing back to the line for safety reasons. The gentleman's agreement had kind of worn off, they said, but it's really by the New Hampshire deal with Dale Jarrett, and I believe it was Casey Mears, too, in that situation where they nearly had a head-on collision and it would have been really bad in the middle of the front stretch, smoke everywhere. So they said, caution comes out, freeze the field. We're done. Stop where we're going. This was a result of this race. Really, people were upset that Dale Jr. was not the winner of this race. They really were. A couple months later in July, NASCAR debuted the green-white checkered rule for all 3 national divisions. The trucks had something like this prior to this, but this was a revamped one that said this is a universal rule for all series, so same rules for everyone. The win was Chevrolet's 11th straight at Talladega. It was Gordon's first points-paying superspeedway victory since the spring race, this same race at Talladega in 2000. It was Ricky Rudd's final career pole. It was Eric McClure's first career Cup Series start, and it was Robbie Gordon's final top 5 with RCR and final top 5 on his superspeedway as well. A couple quotes here. Mike Joy is talking about the debris and stuff on the front stretch. He goes, however, that debris has come from the section of the grandstands. That's a sad commentary. And it was. Kind of was. Gordon said, I'm not sure if they were Pepsi cans or beer cans, but there was a lot of aluminum out on the track. That's for sure. And there was a lot. They did the burnouts through it. Very notorious. I mean, my dad still gives me grief about this. Like I say Gordon has 93 career victories. That's 92 career victories. I'm like, no, it's 93. It's 93. So yeah, I can't remember if I watched this race live. I feel like I did. I honestly cannot remember now. I'm pretty sure I did.
I know I did, but once Casey Kane wrecked back then, I kind of checked out.
Well, he had a rough go of it there the first few laps.
He was really bad at plate races his first several years of NASCAR. I remember in 2005 he was leading the Pepsi 400 briefly on pit strategy and stopped, and he was out front. and there was a 4-wide change for the lead with Tony Stewart at the start-finish line, and everyone. I remember Casey Kane was in that, and I was like, man, this is the best Casey Kane's ever run at Daytona. I was so excited. And then I remember the 2 years later at the fall Talladega race when Vickers took out Johnson and Earnhardt. Yeah. Kane was in second after that. And I was like, oh, man, NASCAR, let him race. Because I was like, if they don't throw a yellow, Casey Kane can win this race. And he had a run on Vickers, and he was going to get around him. And then they threw the yellow, and then Kane had to give the position back. And I literally, because Talladega's always been on my birthday. And if you don't know, like, you know, Talladega's always happened usually on my birthday. My birthday is actually today. It's a Tuesday, October 5th. So now
it is. Happy birthday, Rob.
So, but like, so imagine Casey Kane winning on my birthday at Talladega. Like, imagine how much I wanted that. I literally wanted that so badly, and that's all I wanted when I turned 11 years old. And I couldn't even get that, and I was still disappointed for it. So most plate races back then, when Kane was out of it, I was just kind of checked out. I'd still be watching it because it's NASCAR, but like, right. I'm pretty much checked out. Like, I don't care who wins this race. I don't care who loses this race. I don't care if the whole field gets caught up in an accident anymore. I don't care.
Well, yeah, though. Yeah, it was a good race though. The parts I rewatched here, and it was good racing back then. It was really good racing.
I definitely. Favorite part about that race is Kerry Earnhardt made his debut with Richard Childress Racing in that event. They ran him in plate races between 04 and 05 in a number 33 Bass Pro Shop Chevrolet that I still believe is one of the best looking cars. Best looking one-off cars back then. I do actually have a diecast of it that he ran from Father's Day at Michigan. It says "Thanks, Dad" on it, and I have it in conjunction with the Dale Earnhardt Jr. He ran the same thing, but I bought it specifically for the Kerry Earnhardt because I believe that was the only Kerry Earnhardt diecast that was made from that era, and that was always one of my favorite paint schemes. So I remember that a lot. I remember Kerry Earnhardt getting his start. I remember Casey Kane wrecking, and I remember everybody getting mad at it, and I'm just sitting here like, man, I don't care if the race ends under yellow. I mean, it sucks, yeah, but it is what it is. And then NASCAR was like, this is a big problem, so we're gonna make the green white checker rule now. Like a couple of weeks after that.
Yeah, it was a couple months later they debuted it. The thing I never understood is why it takes so long to caution. You know, why did it? You know, I don't know. It just that if they were a little quicker with themselves, they would have had at least a 1-lap shootout, and who knows what would happen at that point. But Rob, that was Roller Featured Race this week. Again, that was the 2004 Aaron's 499 at Talladega Superspeedway, inspired to share by the events of Saturday night, quite literally Saturday night at Talladega this past weekend, with Brandon Brown being the winner. So, Rob, take us through what's in the windshield.
Yeah, looking forward to this weekend. Formula One is back in action, this time from Turkey. The Istanbul Park will host the Turkish Grand Prix on October 10th, and the United States Grand Prix follows on October 24th at Circuit of the Americas. The ARCA Menard Series West races its penultimate round at the All-American Speedway on October 9th. The National ARCA Series concludes its season at Kansas Speedway on the 23rd of October, and the West Series will conclude its season at Phoenix Raceway on November 6th. The NASCAR Cup Series and the Xfinity Series will take a short trip to the Charlotte Motor Speedway to complete the Roval this weekend. It's Roval week. I'm excited. Week on October 9th and 10th. Both are cutoff races for the round of 12 in the Xfinity Series and in the Cup Series. So exciting times ahead. So that is it for this week's Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. Before we say goodbye, though, I don't want to end this necessarily on a sad piece, but I did want to talk about something that happened over the weekend. We found out, Josh, I don't know if I didn't go over this with you, Josh, so I apologize ahead of time if this is throwing you off guard. You didn't know about this. But John West Townley died this weekend. Of course, the facts are all still coming out. Apparently, it doesn't look very good, unfortunately, for all sides involved, definitely. Seems like John West was not very happy with whatever was going on, and an altercation played out, and shots were fired, and people were injured, and John West died from them. Definitely some very sad news to hear in the racing community and the racing world. but did want to pass that news along in case anybody hadn't heard. I recommend you guys read up on it on yourself, because obviously I'm struggling to find the right words to talk about this situation, because it's a difficult one. It's a delicate one. Domestic abuse, domestic violence, stuff like that is always a delicate topic. You don't really want to talk about it all that much. But unfortunately, because it involves NASCAR, it kind of have to talk about it. But just definitely some sad news. Prayers are with all the families that are involved with this sad situation, sad tragedy. And just hoping somewhere some people can find peace in everything. But that is it for the show today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to follow us on social media at rpeeters33, RPEETERS33, at roller_01, ROLLER_01, at Robin Roller, spelled just as it sounds, ROBANDROLLER. You know where to find us, you know where to get us. Thank you guys again for listening, and we will see you guys next week with the Racing with Rob and Roller podcast. Have a great week, everybody, and enjoy your fall, I suppose. It's fall now, and I'll enjoy my birthday, and you guys enjoy the week. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.